Hello, I'm Dr. Eli Whitney with the Heart and Vascular Institute of Texas. I'm going to share some information with you on salt. Salt is the most common source of sodium in our diet, and sodium is a very important mineral in our health. Without sodium, we would die within 2 weeks. But the problem with sodium is that if we eat too much of it, it will cause high blood pressure and congestive heart failure in many people. The grains of salt that we sprinkle on foods and cook with is actually a combination of sodium and chloride. So that if you were to weigh a teaspoon of salt, half the weight, about 2.5 grams, would be sodium. 1 tablespoon of salt has 7.5 grams of actual sodium. The sodium content of the diet varies tremendously from country to country, and in each country there is a strong link between the amount of sodium consumed and blood pressure. High blood pressure is virtually unknown in areas where the sodium ingestion is less than 1 gram per day. When sodium ingestion is less, or about 1.5 grams, 3% of the population will have high blood pressure. When 2 grams of sodium are eaten per day, approximately 10% of the population will have high blood pressure. When 5 grams of sodium is consumed per day, more than 25% of the population will have high blood pressure. In the United States, the average salt consumption is 10 grams of salt per day. This amounts to 5 grams of sodium per day. This much sodium intake is why high blood pressure is such a problem in this country. For this reason, it's recommended that everyone reduce the intake of salt to less than 4 grams per day, or in terms of sodium, less than 2 grams per day. And if a person has poorly controlled high blood pressure or congestive heart failure, sodium should be limited to 1,000 milligrams per day. There are 3 major sources of salt in the diet: salt which is added at the table to food, salt which is present in prepared food, and restaurant food, which is normally very high in salt. There are 3 ways to limit salt in the diet. First, limit the number of times per week you eat in a restaurant. Second, don't add salt to your food. And third, check food labels to avoid foods which contain a lot of sodium. Let's first go over restaurant food. The average patient with congestive heart failure or poorly controlled blood pressure should limit daily salt to 2 grams or 1,000 milligrams of sodium per day. There are 1,100 milligrams of sodium in 1 McDonald's quarter-pounder cheeseburger. This chicken Caesar pita from Wendy's looks healthy enough, but this single pita has 1,320 milligrams of sodium. Here are 2 pieces of crispy chicken, a leg and a thigh, from Kentucky Fried Chicken. Without the mashed potatoes and bread, these 2 pieces of chicken alone contain 766 milligrams of sodium. Virtually all restaurant food contains high amounts of sodium. For this reason, if sodium restriction is necessary for your medical condition, most restaurant food should be avoided. Adding salt at the table significantly increases sodium ingestion. That's why you must be careful. Many people don't realize that they may be adding too much salt to a single meal. Many of the processed foods you find at the grocery store are similar to restaurant food in that they contain large amounts of sodium. What could be healthier than a can of 100% vegetable juice? It's made from concentrate with added ingredients. This single can of V8 juice contains 880 milligrams of sodium. Another example is dill pickles. This medium dill pickle contains 390 milligrams of sodium. But wait! The amount of sodium listed in the nutrition facts is the amount contained per serving. You must also read how many servings there are and multiply to see how much sodium exists within the product. Looking at the label, a serving equals 1/6 of a pickle. This means the whole pickle contains 390 times 6, or 2,340 milligrams of sodium in this single pickle. Canned soups are particularly high in sodium. This single can of Campbell's chicken noodle soup contains 980 milligrams. Again, this is 980 milligrams per serving. Notice the label also says that there are 2.5 servings for this regular size can, which means if you consume this can of soup, you would take in 2,450 milligrams of sodium. You now understand why you must read the FDA-required nutrition facts label to determine if a product contains more sodium than you should consume. There are certain products that actually help people on low sodium diets. This product, also by Campbell's, contains only 65 milligrams of sodium, and that's in the entire can. Campbell's regular mushroom soup contains 870 milligrams per serving, or 2,175 milligrams of sodium for the entire can. You can see the difference. Some spices, such as lemon pepper, contain large amounts of sodium. Soy sauce and standard salad dressings have large amounts of sodium and should be avoided if you need to be on a low sodium diet. The best way to be certain that you are eating low sodium food is to prepare it from scratch or use fresh products. Frozen vegetables usually have far less sodium than canned vegetables, but again, you must read the labels. Take a look at the sodium content of this can of mixed vegetables and compare it with the amount of sodium in frozen mixed vegetables. That's a big difference. Why do we like salt? Salt makes things taste better, that's why. However, there are many places in the world where people eat very little salt and simply like the flavor of food. How does this occur? Whenever a person eats salt, it must be excreted from the body every day or the salt will build up in the body. When more salt is eaten, more salt is excreted. When salt intake increases, the salt content of urine, sweat, and saliva or spit increases. When the salt content of saliva increases, it quickly deadens the taste buds, so more salt must be eaten to get the same salty flavor. When the amount of salt eaten per day is decreased, the salt content of saliva decreases, and within just a few days, the taste buds become more sensitive to salt. Hence, things will taste just as good, but with much less salt. The trick is that low-salt food must be eaten all the time. If salty food is eaten every now and then, the taste buds will never become sensitive to salt, and only low-salt food will taste good. The key to having a decent-tasting, low-salt diet is consistency. All food needs to be low in salt. Putting all of this together, it is currently recommended that sodium be limited to 2,000 milligrams or 2 grams per day in all Americans. To eat a low-sodium diet, don't add salt to food that is already prepared. Avoid foods which have high amounts of sodium and avoid restaurant food. To avoid foods which have high amounts of sodium, you should read the labels to see how much sodium is in the product, but remember, the sodium listed will be the amount of sodium per serving, not the sodium in the container. You must multiply the sodium per serving times the number of servings per container to obtain the total amount of sodium. By consistently eating a low-sodium diet, your taste buds will activate and food will taste as good with much less salt. Again, the key is consistency. I hope this educational program has helped you better understand the role of salt to your health and how to avoid excessive sodium in your diet. This is Dr. Eli Whitney from the Heart and Vascular Institute of Texas.